Okay, I think we are ready to start. Welcome everyone to Gemalto's first Ask the Experts webinar for 2016. My name is Ariella Shoham and I am the Senior Director of Marketing for Gemalto's Software Monetization Business Unit, and I will be your host today. For those of you who are new to this program, Ask the Experts is Gemalto's quarterly webinar series where we share industry best practices in the world of software monetization. Today's session will talk about software as a growth enabler for profit generation in the IoT. With us today is Avni Rambia, Principal Analyst, Digital Transformation Group at Frost & Sullivan, and Laila Arad Allen, Director of Product Management at Gemalto's Software Monetization Business Unit. Before we start, I would like to draw your attention to the questions chat window on the webinar control panel. As you are all muted, please feel free to submit your questions anytime throughout the webinar, and I will submit your questions to our speakers at the end of the session. Now we are ready to begin. Avni, over to you.
Thank you, Ariella, and good morning, everyone. We're here to talk today about how connecting to profit in terms of connectivity with the internet, in terms of data-driven businesses, and in terms of software really helps propel growth for you, for your customers, and for the industry at large. These are some of the findings from our software monetization market study conducted this year in early 2016. We're seeing that, originally where software licensing was more about node locking or anti-piracy, today's software monetization is used to manage features in many flexible ways. As hardware devices become more intelligent, SKUs and features are controlled in software, and embedded vendors are relying on SLM more and more to meet their changing business needs and to meet the changing needs of their customers. A big difference between traditional hardware businesses and modern software businesses is the need to have very agile product cycles, quickly adapting features and business models as well as deployment processes to the changing needs of customers. And these may be, not even on a 6-month basis, they may be even on a monthly or a weekly basis. And so there is quite a bit of change underway for traditional vendors in terms of how they build and sell their products. We are seeing the fastest change underway in industrial automation today. Healthcare, automotive, and telecommunications are close behind. But across the board, vendors who have moved towards more agile business models are seeing their profit margins grow the fastest and are showing the most stable revenue growth. We are seeing, as this transition is underway, that many customers are hesitant to embrace these new models. They're not sure how to handle the complexity. Very often we see ISVs and embedded vendors trying to build those monetization layers in-house, much as they have built their embedded software in-house over the years. We are finding that overall, the total cost of ownership and the business agility is higher with a commercial solution, and we will go through some of those details over the rest of today's webinar. The most important finding we've really seen is that there is a need to bridge chasms between the finance teams, the marketing teams, the sales teams, and the engineering teams. All of these have to work in very tight lockstep under a modern business model in order to make sure the product line is agile enough and that customers are fully satisfied. That's where the SLM systems come in, tie everything together. They do enforcement, they do back office automation, they also assist with orchestrating business operations and with billing. And what happens as a result of that is you get a very strong handle on threats like counterfeiting, piracy, gray manufacturing, even data theft and malware infection, which are all the other side of the coin. As much as software provides agility, it provides intelligence, it allows you to leverage connectivity, it also brings risks of piracy, of counterfeiting. And SLM solutions help tie all of that together. And so with all of those drivers, we're seeing that SLM solutions will protect over $45 billion of software and software-powered products moving forward. So these are the key market trends that you are probably seeing in your businesses or will very quickly begin to see as the next 2 years roll by. The need for enterprises and customers to control their costs is driving a very strong shift towards preference for usage-based pricing. This is probably one of the biggest transitions we're seeing, not just in traditional B2B software, but also in device-based businesses or embedded businesses as we move forward. Closely correlated with that is the need for electronic SKU management. As you're doing usage-based pricing or feature-based pricing, you want to be able to flip those features on and off in a standard SKU electronically in automated fashion so that customers can expand or reduce the capacity of their devices and their infrastructure, and that can be accurately reported back to you and you can monetize that change. Connected data-driven business models in the longer term, 2018 to 2020, are going to transform every industry. We're seeing it with industrial automation and healthcare today. And we're going to see it even more with things like retail. As you have intelligent devices or as you have connected processes, smarter sensors. And in order to leverage that data-driven business model, you need to have intelligent devices, and those devices have to be monetized, protected, and tracked appropriately. But by 2022, we're pretty much going to see every business becoming a software business. It doesn't matter if you're in manufacturing, in hardware, in transportation, in education, in retail, in high-tech, banking, insurance. Every business will be a software business, and it will be monetized and organized accordingly. So the time to start to prepare for that transformation is now. And fortunately, we're seeing those numbers already start to march in the right direction. So if we look at some IoT market trends in numbers, you can see that there are millions being invested and billions being anticipated from this transformation. 50 billion connected devices by 2020, $10 billion investment in healthcare IoT alone, close to $90 billion of revenue from mobile-to-mobile communication in 2018. These are all hard numbers from Frost & Sullivan research studies from various areas. We're expecting to see a 25% CAGR in the use of mobile-to-mobile data within the industrial automation and utility segment alone. And the reason all these numbers are so strong and so large is that they directly impact the productivity, the top line costs, the top line revenues, the bottom line costs of every industry they touch. So GE is expecting 10 to 15 trillion dollars in a gain of gain in the global GDP just from IoT. And that's where all of this energy is so critical. As you start to leverage connectivity, as you start to leverage intelligent devices, not just moving towards intelligent devices, but transforming your business around the software paradigm, transforming your customers' processes around the software paradigm, that's where you start to unlock all this potential. And that directly translates not only into profit for you, but much more competitive strength for you in a crowded competitive market. And your customers will tend to trust you more as well. So taking a slightly deeper look under the hood at what's driving this growth. Drivers for software monetization in embedded products, these are factors that are leading embedded vendors, embedded manufacturers to embrace software monetization. We've talked about the global boom in terms of industrial automation and healthcare that's driven by connected devices and by IoT. What IoT does is it gives you data. It gives you data that you can then harness, you can analyze, and you can turn that into prescriptive and predictive results that in turn further optimize profits, further improves productivity, and that's both for the vendors and for your customers. And in order to get that entire infrastructure in place, software monetization systems play a very critical role. We're also seeing very straightforward benefits. When you have a single unified SKU where you can turn on and off features, you can change parameters, you get much more simplified operations. Your sales process is faster because customers are more confident in their purchase. You can provide value-based pricing, so your profit margins are higher. And as your marketing starts to be optimized in tandem with the data that you are gathering, you start to generate better sales, more upgrades, again, tighter sales cycles. And so you start to get a very strong positive feedback loop. And that's very important for ongoing growth. We find that software devices also provide confidence to your customers. If we take, video markets, for example, codecs change very, very quickly, resolutions change very quickly. If you look at healthcare technologies, the protocols, the security requirements, the diagnostics technologies change very often. If you look at IoT, there are new ways and processes, new operating systems, new devices that come out every 6 months or every year. It's very hard in this kind of transitory environment for your customers to have the kind of rigid requirements they could have created even 2 years ago. And so if you have a custom-built hardware product, there is a level of hesitance with customers saying, is this the right sync for our CapEx? If you have a software-powered product, you can change that device as the user requirements change or as technologies change. And that creates confidence and investment. Again, that leads to tighter sales cycles, larger projects, and that's better for you and for your customers. The other big changes that we are seeing, as we've talked about, is this increasing demand for transparent, flexible pricing. There's also a need to conduct what we call business at the speed of cloud. If if a telecommunications provider suddenly needs additional bandwidth on a tower, or if a certain healthcare device needs to conduct 50 MRIs instead of 5, those need to be turned on and off very quickly in response to demand. And SLM solutions are very powerful at automating those, making sure that transactions go through smoothly with a minimum amount of intervention. And so again, coming back to this need to very tightly close the loop between engineering, sales, and marketing, that's what SLM solutions do, and that's how businesses can move very confidently towards becoming a more software paradigm rather than hardware paradigm business. And ultimately, we're seeing those companies who have moved first towards this paradigm clearly grow and succeed, whether it's Cisco, Microsoft, Adobe, Ericsson, GE, Rockwell Collins. All these thought leaders are clearly seeing success from this strategy, and that is encouraging additional companies to start on this transformation process. Now, clearly, it's not all a bed of roses. There are significant restraints and challenges in play as well. One of the biggest challenges we've seen as we talk to companies is this concern from executive teams, from financial teams, that the newer pricing models will cannibalize existing revenues. That is a big change. Most companies see, one of the strongest challenges as they transform towards a software mentality is to handle the sales organization and the sales processes. Certainly, the top-line revenues can look very different, especially when servers are being bought off the shelf and only software is being sold. The important thing to remember here is it's still about the profit. And the net profit, as we'll see in a slide or two, is actually higher for software-based projects, even if the actual revenue may seem to be smaller. Another critical aspect to keep in mind as you move towards software is there is a growing risk of IP theft. With hardware, if you manufacture a unit, if it gets stolen or misused, it's that one unit. With software, if you have one copy, you can generate unlimited versions of that product. And so it's important to keep in mind the risk of piracy and counterfeiting. It's also very important to understand that with the current technologies in play, that risk can be completely controlled. It's just important to acknowledge that risk, put it into your product plans, and have the correct safeguards in place. So again, it's a risk, but it is a fully manageable risk as long as you have a mature software monetization partner working with you. We have seen also that, given that this is a big change for companies, they're seeking to limit their risk by evolving rather than transforming. And that is one of the things we are very strongly encouraging companies to get over. We realize that, this is a big challenge, it is a big transformation, but it needs to be done now. Otherwise, you run the risk of losing ground to other competitors. And then from a customer perspective, there is a fear of negative impact on reliability or performance. Again, this is something that is more of myth than reality, and we encourage customers to start to try out different options, to start to get into trials so that you can overcome these challenges. So finally, to summarize, these are the business benefits of transformation to software. Certainly, there is some risk and uncertainty involved, but the results that many companies have seen more than justify that transformation. We see that typical profit margins for software are 2 to 5 times that of hardware. Over 80% of organizations who are using smart manufacturing are seeing increased efficiency. Certainly, there are challenges. Pretty much every ISV has challenges with their pricing and feature bundling. That's where software monetization systems step in to streamline that, to make it agile, to make it adaptable, and to remove that challenge. I'll summarize with these key points in a nutshell. Again, IoT analytics, instant-on deployments, these are driving transformation across the board. They're transforming how your products should be built. They're transforming how customers will select your products. The age of custom-built specialized hardware is absolutely ending. And taking its place is software-based feature management. It's more agile, it's more profitable, it's what your customers want. Certainly there are challenges, but these can be surmounted, and the risk is absolutely justified by the benefits you will see in terms of higher profitability, improved agility, greater competitive strength, and most importantly, higher customer satisfaction. With that, I will turn it back to Ariella and Laila. If you do have any questions, please just submit it in the chat window to your right, and we will be happy to address them at the end.
Thank you, Avni. That was a very interesting session. Let me now transfer the presentation rights to Laila. Laila, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Ariella and Avni. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yes, Laila, we can see your screen very well.
Oh, okay. So still staying in the IoT era, I will talk today about the concept of value. Avni described that the transformation of vendors in the embedded and hardware markets into software companies is important and, as we saw, very challenging. So I would like to start by describing how the Internet of Things and the connected world create new business opportunities for software and device vendors alike. So for new business models, the Internet of Things helps vendors create new value streams for customers, speed time to market, and they can respond more rapidly to customer needs. For real-time information on mission-critical systems, vendors can capture more data about processes, and Avni talked about the issue of capturing data. So they can capture more data about processes and products more quickly and radically improve their market agility. For diversification of revenue streams, IoT helps vendors monetize additional services on top of the traditional lines of business. For global visibility, IoT makes it easier for vendors to see inside their business, including tracking from one end of the supply chain to the other, which can lower the cost of doing business in widespread sites. For efficient and intelligent operations, access to information from autonomous endpoints allows vendors to make on-the-fly decisions on pricing, logistics, sales, and support and deployment. In terms of new forms of value, there's a multitude of opportunities to create value and increase revenue in the connected world, and this is actually what I would like to focus on in this presentation. So device vendors sell hardware, and as such, their business models, their go-to-market strategies, their value proposition, they're all structured around the sale of a physical device. So revenues derive from the sale of the hardware device and maybe maintenance. And the next big revenue opportunity typically comes when the device needs replacement. We know that hardware is becoming a commodity, and we hear from our customers that sell devices that they're spending over 70% resources on developing software. But in many cases, any software on the device is viewed just as an incremental piece of a larger device sale, and it's often discounted or given away. So in fact, the software has no value. And even if the vendors create the value in software, they don't always know how to communicate it to the market. And in many cases, salespeople are incented to sell hardware and not to even worry, not to worry at all about the software. So as the Internet of Things spreads, the implications for business models innovation is huge. One of the major drivers in the connected world is changing end users' preferences. They're demanding flexible pricing models, easy access to software upgrades, and they want a superior customer experience. So in a connected world, their perception of value and what they're willing to pay for is changing dramatically. So to take advantage of IoT, software and device vendors alike need to fundamentally rethink their orthodox views, so to speak, about value, and they need to be able to clearly communicate and articulate it to their customers. So value has always been the heart of any business model. It's the blood that pumps the oxygen, so to speak, into the business models. But in a connected world, value carries additional dimensions, and when talking about value, we can identify two types. There's value creation, which increases the value of a company's offering and encourages customers' willingness to pay. This is actually the value proposition to your customers. And then there's value capture, which is how a company monetizes the value it creates and makes money from it. But value creation and capture have come a long way in the IoT era and align with the innovative ways of defining business models in particular and doing business in general. So let me compare value creation and capture in the traditional world versus the excuse me, versus the IoT world. So in the traditional world, value creation means that because there is no connectivity and usually no relationship between the vendor and customers, vendors identify and solve for existing customer needs in a reactive manner. Value is created around engineering, product development, and manufacturing. So vendors manufacture well-engineered devices, but these become obsolete over time. And in terms of competition, there's always a feature versus feature warfare, and when feature innovation eventually proves to be too incremental, price competition follows and products can become obsolete. In comparison to that, with IoT-based value creation, because everything is connected, vendors can address real-time and emergent needs in a predictive manner. Value is built around an information-based model that leverages data, analytics, software, effective forecasting, and services. And in today's competitive business environment, customers are demanding more flexible pricing models and they value this when these are offered to them. Vendors can track usage to analyze customer behaviors and provide additional value by improving product capabilities and offering additional customer-specific features. And then new features with value can be pushed to customers. Product and value can refresh through remote updates. Customer self-service tools. These can engage end users by providing additional value because they appreciate the ability to see and to manage what they purchased in terms of products and entitlements. And when products are connected, vendors can create value by using the power of data for personalization. Personalization in the age of IoT leverages the fact that the product is in place to offer overall value proposition to customer. So whether it's a car or a tractor or a treadmill or an MRI machine, users expect the highest degree of relevance, responsiveness, and convenience. So by using the power of data, vendors can serve each customer on their own terms, so to speak. We can also compare the traditional and IoT-based value capture. So in the traditional world, vendors capture value just by selling the next device. This potentially can include commodity advantages, IP ownership, and brand name. But their business model relies on customer loyalty to come back and buy the second product. And then there's the issue of capability development. To capture value, they just leverage core competencies, existing resources, and processes. And in comparison to that, in the IoT-based value capture, products are no longer one and done. They have a life cycle throughout which vendors can create and capture value. Revenue is not limited to physical product sales, but also include revenue from software and applications. And other revenue streams become possible after the initial product sale, including value-added services, subscriptions, apps, which can easily exceed the initial purchase price. And in terms of capability development, vendors can team up with other IoT ecosystem partners to understand how they make money and then leverage that. Software and device vendors can monetize the Internet of Things in order to extract and capture value from the connectivity opportunity. Creating and capturing value is very much dependent on two things. One is the relationship that the vendors form with their customers in order to create and also capture the value. And the second is the complexity of the monetization that ultimately dictates the value capture. So this diagram shows 4 types of monetization models and how vendors can select one or more models to match the level of monetization complexity, the business needs type, their customer relationship, and the value that they want to create and capture. The device monetization model is the simplest model where vendors can charge a price premium for the product's connected features. So an example is a remotely programmable LED light bulb that's controlled by a smartphone app. As another example, some of our customers from the medical industry use this model by enabling remote activation of features. So in this model, value is created by providing users the ability to control devices remotely, and value is captured by charging a premium for this connectivity. In the services monetization model, vendors convert what has been a traditional product into a service by tying in a recurring pricing model for specific features. As an example, car manufacturers offer a service of security features, maintenance assistance, and navigation tools for a set subscription fee. One of our customers, which sells MRI machines, uses this model to charge per scan for a usage-based subscription fee versus a one-time sale of the machine. So value is created by offering, in this case, hospitals an OPEX model rather than a CAPEX model, and value is captured by a recurring revenue stream. In the data monetization model, vendors generate revenues by selling packaged data gathered from sensors. So again, as an example, cars and trucks of all types are now sending their diagnostic data back to the dealership to ensure prompt servicing as well as increased upselling potential between the dealer and the owner. Data collection and monetization can also provide value by personalization. So just think of a car that adjusts to provide each driver or a collection of drivers and passengers the ultimate personalized driving and consumer experience while maintaining the highest level of safety. So in this sense, IoT helps to deliver a more personal car to the drivers of that car even after the car has left the factory. So it's a car that continuously adjusts as it's being used. Another example from the B2B segment is Nest, which manufactures smart thermostats. They're using their learning thermostat, which is a home automation and energy management product, as a platform to offer energy management services to utilities. So generally speaking, with the data monetization model, value is created by providing data about end-user behavior and preferred features to enhance their future customer experience and by suggesting additional capabilities. Value is captured by selling packaged insights that are generated from the analyzed data that is gathered through sensors. The Internet of Things thrives in a connected ecosystem, and the bigger the ecosystem, the greater is the value that's generated for all the stakeholders. In an ecosystem, the focus is not so much on selling a product or a service, but on providing a shared platform to other players in the ecosystems. These can be hardware manufacturers, software developers, service providers, and the like. So in this model, the platform promoter or provider ideally makes money from both end customers as well as other platform users. Platform users pay the promoter or the provider for listing, and the promoter also gets a share whenever a product is sold to the end customer on the platform. So a shared platform brings lots of benefits to participants. For instance, with the APIs that are provided by the platform provider, independent companies that have IoT products or services can develop custom applications with these APIs. SmartThings is an example of a company that's taken the ecosystem approach towards this monetization model. They sell their own products and services while creating a platform for other IoT companies to sell services that interlink with it. They offer a centralized hub and an assortment of both in-house and third-party IoT products. So value is created by offering a hub for partners and offering design guidance to developers who want to make products for the platform, and value is captured by charging for partnering with the hub and additional interlinked services for users. So device vendors need to quickly define their strategy to capture the potential of the Internet of Things. Specifically, they have to shift from a business model that's built around engineering and product development and manufacturing to an information-based model that leverages software, licenses, entitlements, data, analytics, and services, all of this to unlock and capture value. Gemalto's Sentinel software monetization solution enables software and device vendors alike to tap into new business opportunities while unlocking and capturing value. This diagram describes the Sentinel software monetization platform. In the middle are the Sentinel main offerings, which include one, security and protection for software products, hardware devices, and intellectual property with our award-winning security solutions. The second is technology for ensuring compliance and enforcement of license agreements, in addition to tracking control and reporting use of products and features. And the third is an entitled management system that manages all the licensing life cycle operations for on-premise, cloud, and embedded software, including packaging, provisioning, and delivery. On the left are the various deployment models that the Sentinel platform supports, whether your software is deployed on-premise or embedded in a device or as a service in the cloud. You can use our security, protection, licensing, usage, and entitlement management solutions to increase revenue, improve customer satisfaction, and reach new markets. On the right are the various external systems that the Sentinel platform can integrate with, including embedded tool chains and back-office systems such as billing, ERP and CRM, and Internet of Things platforms. And finally, on the bottom, this bottom layer shows the various services that Gemalto provides to support your software monetization processes. A customer portal enables your customers to see and manage the products, the features, the entitlements they purchased from you, and to receive upgrades automatically. And this is a tool that is proven to significantly improve customer satisfaction. We also offer hosted services for entitlement management and electronic software delivery. Our professional services team can offer you project-based services and workshops to help you define, design, develop, and deploy your software monetization strategy and implementation. And in addition, our support team provide consulting services to help you improve your protection and licensing implementations with training that's backed by our security and licensing experts. So to summarize, device vendors should transform into some software companies in order to adapt to the revolution that's dictated by the Internet of Things. Value is the heart of any business model and unlocks countless business opportunities that also lead to increased revenue. To take advantage of software, and IoT device vendors need to rethink their conventional views about value. Value creation and capture provide new business opportunities in the IoT era. And Sentinel software monetization solution provides the answer to IP theft, revenue leakage, unified management of entitlements and enforcement methods, and automation of fulfillment and renewals, which allow for value creation and capture. Thank you. Back to you, Ariella.
Thank you so much, Lila. That was very interesting and insightful. You can stay unmuted, and I'll invite Avni to get on the line as well, while I will look at some of the questions that were submitted. Let me just have a look at that. Okay, I have a couple of questions, and people can continue to submit some questions if you like while we answer these. I have one question for Avni. Avni, are you off mute?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, you discussed the various business models available. One of them was usage-based billing. Can you comment on how to overcome privacy concerns when offering this type of pricing model?
Yes, absolutely. And, that is a very pertinent question. We have seen concerns about privacy, about corporate proprietary information. If you're sending back data, for example, on how many operations or what type of operations were done using the software, is that going to be a risk in terms of competitive nature or in terms of just privacy regulations? What we've found is that it's important to be transparent and clear about what is being done. There are absolutely ways to gather data in a way that is not compromising of either privacy or competitive situations. And what we're also seeing is that originally when this model was introduced maybe 5 or 6 years ago, the software publishers tended to be very protective of the data. They would encrypt logs, transmit them. It was treated as a piracy situation. And the customers weren't really sure of what was being sent back. What we find is a much more effective approach, and that is becoming very popular today. Is a twofold approach. One is in the licensing terms and as part of the sales process, it's very clear what type of data is being gathered, when it is being sent back, and how that data gathering provides value to the customer. Because that's the basis of the usage-based pricing or the discounted pricing that is available in a connected scenario. The second aspect is the logs very often now are sent back in clear text. So you still hash them at the end so that they can't be tampered with, but they are clear text so the customer is aware or the IT team is aware of what's being sent back. Now that said, there will be customers who don't like any type of data being sent back. So there's always the fallback to the traditional on-premises type of licensing where it's a perpetual license and then it's a dark connection. But by and large, what we're finding is that customers are open to this more transparent form of information sharing because it is good for them.
Thank you, Avni. I have a couple of questions for Laila. The first question is, you mentioned the term device vendors. Can you be more specific regarding what falls under this category?
Yeah, sure. When we're referring to device vendors, we're actually, well, we can divide it into sort of three. We are talking about vendors that sell devices or machines with, I would say, three types of software running on it. There's the devices or the machines that have software running on standard platforms, and when we say standard platforms, we're talking about operating systems running on x86, such as Windows XP Embedded, Windows 7 and 8 embedded, WinCE, Linux, and Android on x86, VxWorks on x86. So device vendors selling devices or machines with these type software running on these platforms, that's one. The second type is devices or machines that are running software on what we defined as non-standard platform, and these are the operating systems, software that's running on operating systems such as Linux ARM, WinCE ARM, Android, VxWorks on ARM. And then there's a third category, and these are vendors that sell devices with restricted operating environment, devices that have a very small footprint. They're very restricted in terms of memory, and the libraries must be very simple and consume very little memory resources, even bare metal devices. And we actually have solutions for all of these types of, we have IP protection and licensing solutions for all three types of devices that I just mentioned.
Great, thank you, Lila. I actually have two more questions for you. I'll try and combine them just so that to make sure we stay on schedule. So both of the questions actually relate to EMS, to the entitlement management solution that you discussed. One of them is asking about the SKU reduction. Where does that happen, or how does that happen, and does it happen through EMS? And the second one it also relates to EMS and asks what data can EMS collect, or if you can be a bit more detailed regarding that.
Okay, so regarding SKUs, it's not something that's done automatically. Reduction of SKUs wow, it's a hard word. An outcome of a process where you on a single device, instead of having multiple devices, variant models of devices that have various features that go to different markets, what you can do with software monetization is have, say, one model of your device which has all of the features on it, and then you can turn on and off features by means of licensing. And that reduces that. Eventually, ultimately, what happens is that you have it actually more reduces the inventory than actually the SKUs. It reduces the inventory because you actually have one model that you can send out as is with the software, all of the software into the market, and then turn on and off features according to customer requirements by means of licensing. And this is done with our the definition of these features and their licenses entitlements is something that is performed with the entitlement management system, which is part of our solution platform. So I hope that answered the question.
I think it did. And then the second part is, can you talked about data collection. So can you refer to, when you say that, and again in reference to EMS, can you talk a bit about what type of data can be collected?
Well, any data regarding the usage of the various features that are licensed and are sent to the customers, all of that data can be gathered within the entitlement management system. What features and what capabilities the end users, the customers are using, and this is used, this is a huge benefit in terms of business intelligence and marketing intelligence in order to be able to understand what your customers are using and how they're using it. And this is done through our, again, through our entitlement management system.
Thank you, Lila. I think we are almost up on time, and I think we are good on the questions. So I want to thank again both Avni and Lila for joining us today. I want to thank everyone who joined us online. You can see on this slide the contact details for both Avni and Lila, as well as a link to previous Ask the Experts webinars. This webinar will also be posted on that link, and we will be sending a link to this recording to everyone who has registered for this session. So I will say thank you again one last time, and hope to meet you all again in the Q2 Ask the Webinar session. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.